Failure is not final. Keep moving forward, because the moment you decide that a setback is a sentence, you stop living like a builder and you start living like a prisoner. And nothing steals more futures than a person who mistakes one bad moment for a permanent identity. The truth is, failure is not a door slamming forever. It is information. It is feedback. It is training. It is proof that you tried something real. And it is often the price of becoming the version of yourself you keep saying you want to meet, because the people you admire most were not protected from failure. They were shaped by it. And the only difference between someone who eventually wins and someone who stays stuck is not talent, luck, money, or perfect timing. The difference is what they do next. Most people don't actually fear failure itself. They fear what they think failure means. They fear the story that will be attached to it, the embarrassment, the judgment, the feeling of I'm not good enough, the fear that one rejection confirms every insecurity they've ever carried. And that's why failure feels so heavy, because people make it personal. They turn an event into an identity. They turn a result into a label. They turn I failed at this attempt into I am a failure. And once you accept that label, you start acting like it, you start expecting the worst, you stop taking risks, you stop practicing, you stop applying, you stop showing up, you stop learning, and then your life becomes exactly as small as the label you accepted. But failure is not final, and it is not your identity. It is a moment in a process, and process is where growth lives, because you do not become strong by being protected. You become strong by being tested and learning how to stand up again. Life will test you with rejection, delays, missed opportunities, wrong decisions, relationships that didn't work, jobs that ended, plans that didn't go as expected, days when you did everything right and still didn't get the outcome you wanted. And those moments can either break you or build you depending on your mindset, because your mindset is the place where failure becomes either a dead end or a detour. And a detour still moves you forward. When you look honestly at your life, you'll realize that almost every major improvement you've ever made came after some form of failure, after you realized what wasn't working, after you got tired of repeating the same mistake, after you were forced to confront a weakness, after you were humbled into learning, after you lost something that made you wake up, after you tried and it didn't go your way, because failure exposes what comfort hides, and that exposure is uncomfortable, but it is valuable because you cannot fix what you refuse to face. The problem is that many people don't just fail, they collapse. And collapse happens when you interpret failure as proof that you should stop instead of proof that you should adjust. Because a failure can be a teacher if you let it, but it becomes a trap if you dramatize it. There are people right now who have lost years, not because they failed once, but because they stopped after failing once, and they never returned, they never corrected, they never tried again. They stayed loyal to their embarrassment, they stayed loyal to their fear, they stayed loyal to their old identity, and loyalty to fear is one of the most expensive decisions a person can make, because fear demands your potential as payment. Keeping moving forward is not about pretending you're fine. It is about refusing to let one moment decide your direction, because direction is everything. Two people can fall, but one falls into learning and the other falls into shame. And shame is a heavy place to live, because shame doesn't make you better. It makes you hide. And hiding is how dreams die quietly. You have to understand something clearly. Success is not a straight line. It is a messy road filled with wrong turns, late starts, resets, adjustments, lessons, and moments where you thought you were finished, but you weren't. Because being finished is not a feeling, it's a decision, and you can decide not to be finished. You can decide that this is not final, that this is not the end of your story, that this is not the chapter you will be remembered for, because your life will be defined less by the times you fell, and more by the times you refused to stay down. The people who build meaningful lives are not people who never fail. They are people who treat failure like tuition, because tuition is paid before the reward, and failure often pays for your wisdom. You learn what doesn't work. You learn what you need to improve. You learn what you truly want. You learn what you were avoiding. You learn what you can survive. And survival becomes proof that you are stronger than the fear that kept you small. If you keep moving forward, you will eventually look back and realize that some of your greatest disappointments protected you from a path that would have cost you more, that some rejections redirected you towards something better, that some failures humbled you into discipline, and that some losses forced you to build a stronger foundation. But you can only see those lessons if you keep walking, because clarity often comes from movement, not from overthinking. A lot of people sit still trying to think their way out of failure, trying to analyze everything until they feel safe again. But safety is not the same as progress, and progress requires action. Action is what brings your mind back under control, because anxiety grows when you think without doing, and it shrinks when you do something real. The fastest way to heal the feeling of failure is to take the next step, because the next step proves you're not finished. It proves you still have agency. It proves you still have fight. It proves you're not trapped inside one outcome. And this is why keep moving forward is not a motivational cliche. It's a strategy for survival and growth. If your relationship failed, keep moving forward by learning what you ignored, by improving your communication, by strengthening your boundaries, by healing your patterns, by becoming emotionally mature enough to build a healthier future. If you failed an exam, keep moving forward by studying differently, by practicing consistently, by learning how your mind learns, by asking for help, by returning to the material instead of running from it. If your business attempt didn't work, keep moving forward by studying the market, by improving the offer, by learning how to sell, by testing again, by building skills you don't yet have. If you lost a job, keep moving forward by updating your skills, by networking, by applying again, by learning how to present your value, by not letting one employer's decision become your identity. Your failure is not final, but your response might be, because if you respond, by quitting, you create finality. And if you respond by learning, you create growth. The biggest lesson you must accept is that the world does not reward perfection. It rewards resilience, because perfection is rare and fragile, but resilience is repeatable. And repeatable behaviors are what create repeatable outcomes. Resilience is not loud. It is quiet. It is getting up when you don't feel like it. It is returning to the plan after you slipped. It is doing the basics on hard days so you don't fall into zero. It is choosing correction instead of collapse, and correction is how progress is maintained. Many people destroy their momentum with all or nothing thinking. They miss one day and decide the week is ruined. They fail one attempt and decide the dream is dead. They make one mistake and decide they are broken, and that mindset is not realistic. It is emotional, it is fear-based, and it is lazy in a hidden way because it avoids the responsibility of returning. The disciplined mindset is different. It says, I slipped, so I correct. I failed, so I adjust. I got rejected, so I try again. And that is how winners are built. Not by never failing, but by refusing to dramatize failure into destiny. If you want to truly keep moving forward, you need to separate your worth from your results. Because results change, circumstances change, and sometimes you will do your best and still not win immediately. But your worth is not a scoreboard. Your worth is inherent, and when you attach your identity to outcomes, you become emotionally unstable. You rise and fall with every win and loss, and that instability makes consistency impossible. Consistency is the real engine of long-term success, and consistency only becomes possible when you learn to be steady even when outcomes are not. You might be thinking, but failure hurts. And yes, it does, because it attacks your ego. It exposes your hopes. It challenges your confidence. It makes you feel like everyone is watching even when they aren't. and it can make you question your future, but pain is not proof you should stop. Pain is proof that what you tried mattered to you, and if it mattered, it deserves another attempt. The person who keeps moving forward does not deny the pain. They process it, but they don't worship it. They don't build a home in it. They feel it, learn from it, and then take the next step. And the next step is often smaller than your fear makes it. Send the email, rewrite the resume, practice for 20 minutes, make the call, schedule the appointment, apply again, apologize, start over, because the goal is not to fix your entire life in one day. The goal is to regain direction. Direction is how you exit failure. When you regain direction, your mind calms down because your mind stops feeling trapped. Now, to keep moving forward, you must also understand that not all failures are equal. Some failures are skill failures, some are strategy failures, some are effort failures, some are timing failures, and some are environment failures. The mistake is treating every failure as a character flaw. Sometimes you didn't fail because you're not good enough. You failed because you used the wrong method. You lacked information. You didn't have the right system. You didn't have the right support, or you didn't practice enough. That's not shame. That's solvable. The forward-moving mindset asks better questions. What exactly happened? What did I control? What did I not control? What can I change? What can I learn? What is the next attempt going to look like? Because questions shape behavior, and behavior shapes outcomes. If you keep asking, why am I like this? You stay trapped in self-judgment, but if you ask, what will I do next? You move into action. Action is the antidote to shame. Shame wants you to hide. Action wants you to build. This is why people who keep moving forward often have a simple rule: no self-punishment without self-correction. If you made a mistake, correct it, but don't insult yourself, because insulting yourself doesn't improve your skill. It only drains your energy and makes you want to escape. You can be firm without being cruel. You can be honest without being hateful. You can hold yourself accountable without destroying your confidence, because confidence is needed to continue, and continuing is the whole point. Failure is not final, but quitting makes it final. And quitting often begins in the mind before it happens in behavior. It begins when you start telling yourself, it's over, I'm done, I can't, it will never work, I always mess up. And those sentences feel true because they are familiar, but familiar does not mean true. Familiar means practiced, your internal. Language becomes the boundaries of your life. If you speak defeat, you will live defeated. If you speak growth, you will live growing. A forward-moving person learns to talk to themselves like a coach, not like an enemy. A coach doesn't lie, but a coach says, learn, try again, do the next rep, focus, return, because the mind needs direction, and direction is often given through words. This is why one of the strongest things you can do after a failure is to control your narrative. Instead of saying, I failed, say, that attempt failed. Instead of saying, I'm not good enough, say, I need to improve this skill. Instead of saying, it's too late, say, I'm starting from here, because those small language shifts keep your identity intact while still acknowledging reality. You are not denying the failure. You are placing it in the correct category. A moment, not a destiny. And when you place it correctly, you can move. Keeping moving forward also requires you to accept that progress is not always visible immediately, and that delayed results are a normal part of growth. Many people stop because they don't see fast feedback. They work for a week, a month, sometimes even a few months, and because their results are not dramatic yet, they assume the effort is wasted. But growth is often underground before it shows above the surface. Skill building, confidence, strength, and mastery often happen quietly before anyone sees them. The seed grows before the tree appears, and if you keep digging up the seed to check if it's working, you interrupt the process. Moving forward means you respect time, because time is the partner of consistency. Consistency without time is not enough, and time without consistency is wasted. You need both, and failure often tests whether you can keep showing up long enough for time to reward you. The forward-moving person understands that failure is often a temporary checkpoint, a moment where the process asks you, "Will you keep going even though this is hard?" And if you answer yes enough times, your life changes. Not because you got lucky, but because you became persistent. Persistence is not an emotion. It's a choice repeated. Now here is a truth you might need. Sometimes failure happens because you aimed too low. You played safe. You tried to protect yourself from embarrassment. You tried to avoid risk. And because you stayed in your comfort zone, you never developed the skill or courage needed to win. Failure can be a sign that you need to raise your standards, not lower your dreams. Sometimes the reason you keep failing is because you keep doing the same thing with small adjustments, when what you actually need is a bigger shift in discipline, in environment, in skill building, in focus. Moving forward means you are willing to change what needs to change. It means you stop defending habits that don't serve you. It means you stop saying, "That's just how I am," when you really mean, "I don't want to do the work of changing." The truth is, you don't need to change your entire personality to move forward. You need to change your practices, because your practices are your real belief system. You can say you believe in success, but if your practice is procrastination, your real belief is comfort. You can say you believe in growth, but if your practice is avoidance, your real belief is fear. Moving forward is aligning your practice with your promise. And this is where discipline matters, because discipline is how you keep moving forward, even when failure makes you emotional. Discipline is the bridge between your disappointment and your next attempt. It is doing the next right thing, even when you don't feel like it. And the best way to rebuild discipline after failure is to start small and consistent, because consistency rebuilds self-trust. One of the most damaging side effects of repeated failure is that you stop trusting yourself. You make plans and break them. You promise and don't follow through. And your mind starts to doubt your own words. Then even simple goals feel heavy because you don't believe you will keep them. The solution is not making bigger promises. It is making smaller promises and keeping them. Choose one small action you can do daily. 10 minutes of practice, a short walk, a focused study block, one application, one page of writing, and keep it. That small win is not small when it is repeated, because it changes your identity from "I quit" to "I return," and return is what creates long-term results. Failure is not final, but your identity will try to make it final by telling you a story of hopelessness. You must interrupt that story with evidence, and evidence is created by small, consistent action. Another critical part of moving forward is learning to handle other people's opinions. Failure feels bigger when you imagine everyone is judging you, and sometimes people will judge you because some people only feel safe when others stay small. But your life cannot be built around the comfort of people who are not building their own. A forward-moving person learns to accept that criticism is part of visibility, and visibility is part of progress. If you want to improve, you must be willing to be seen trying, and trying includes failing sometimes. The mature person doesn't avoid failure to avoid judgment. They accept that judgment is cheaper than regret. Regret is living with the knowledge that you didn't even attempt what you were capable of. And that regret can last longer than any embarrassment. Moving forward also means learning to recover quickly. The biggest difference between winners and others is not that winners have fewer bad days. It's that their bad days don't become bad weeks, and their bad weeks don't become bad years. They correct fast. They return fast. They don't dramatize. They don't disappear. They don't punish themselves into paralysis. They simply return. And return is a skill you can train. You train it by building a rule. I don't miss twice. Meaning if you slip once, you come back immediately, because the second miss is where a habit dies. If you keep moving forward after failure, you will also learn a surprising truth. Failure can increase your confidence if you treat it correctly, because it proves you can survive discomfort. You feared failing because you thought it would destroy you, but when you fail and you don't die, when you fail and you learn, when you fail and you keep your character, when you fail and you return, you become less afraid. You realize that fear was exaggerating. You become stronger, and strength is the real protection in life. People often seek protection through avoidance, but avoidance makes you fragile. Strength makes you resilient. Moving forward means choosing strength. It means understanding that the goal is not to live without problems. The goal is to become the kind of person who can handle problems, because problems will always come, but you can become less breakable. Now let's talk about the practical mindset of someone who keeps moving forward. They do not expect the road to be smooth. They expect resistance. They plan for it. They build routines that work even when life is messy. They do not rely on motivation. They rely on structure. They protect their focus because distractions are everywhere. They guard their inputs because what they consume shapes their thoughts. They begin their day with intention because the first hour often sets the tone. They create boundaries with their phone and their environment because attention is their life in minutes. They focus on process goals, not only outcome goals. They measure their day by actions taken, not just feelings felt. They ask, what did I do today that moved me forward? Even if the movement is small. And when they fail, they do not waste time in self-hate. They do not become dramatic. They do not call themselves names. They return to the basics. They breathe. They reflect. They adjust. They act. This approach makes failure smaller, not because failure disappears, but because failure loses its power to stop you. It becomes one part of the journey, not the end of the journey. You also have to recognize that some failures are blessings in disguise. Sometimes you fail at something that would have trapped you in the wrong direction. Sometimes you lose a relationship that would have drained you. Sometimes you don't get an opportunity that would have limited your growth. Sometimes the failure protects you from a path that looks good short term, but costs you long term. But you can only see that later. In the moment, it hurts. Moving forward means trusting that time can reveal meaning. It means not demanding that every painful moment makes sense immediately. It means continuing even when you don't yet understand. And this is where faith in yourself matters. Not faith that everything will be easy, but faith that you can handle what is hard. Now, if you're listening to this and thinking about a failure that still hurts, something you still carry, something you still replay, I want you to understand that pain does not mean you're weak. Pain means you cared. The mistake is not caring. The mistake is letting the pain become your home. You have to move. Not fast, not perfectly, but forward. Because forward movement is how the mind heals. Forward movement gives you new experiences, new evidence, new confidence, new opportunities, and new identity. If you stay still, your mind keeps replaying the same scene, and the replay becomes your reality. But if you move, the story changes. You create new chapters. You create new momentum. You create new proof. And proof is what heals insecurity. Proof is what restores hope. And hope is not naive. Hope is fuel. It keeps you trying. It keeps you learning. It keeps you alive to possibility. Keeping moving forward also means you stop demanding that you feel ready. Ready is not a feeling. It's a decision. You will rarely feel fully ready for something that matters. You feel ready after you do it a few times. You feel ready after you build skill. You feel ready after you build confidence. Waiting to feel ready is often fear in a polite outfit. Moving forward means starting while you are still nervous. It means sending the application while you still doubt. It means practicing while you still feel clumsy. It means speaking up while your voice shakes. It means trying again while your heart remembers the last disappointment. That is courage. And courage is how you keep moving forward. Now imagine what could change in your life if you truly believed this title. Not as a quote, but as a daily standard. Failure is not final. I keep moving forward. If you believed That you would stop quitting after rejection. You would stop hiding after criticism. You would stop collapsing after mistakes. You would stop delaying because of fear. You would begin to see setbacks as training. You would return faster. You would become consistent. You would build momentum. Your skills would grow. Your confidence would rise. Your opportunities would increase. Your life would become larger, not because life became easier, but because you became stronger. Strength is not built by avoiding failure. Strength is built by surviving it and continuing anyway. And that is why failure is not final. It is simply part of the path. The final thing is your decision, and you get to decide that you are not done. So here is the commitment you can make right now. I will not let one outcome define me. I will not let one bad day become a bad life. I will not let one mistake become my identity. I will learn, adjust, and continue. I will do the next right thing. I will return quickly. I will move forward even if it's a small step. I will keep building, because the only way failure becomes final is if you stop. And you are not here to stop. You are here to grow. Keep moving forward, because one day you will look back at what felt like the end and realize it was the beginning of your strength.